I never expected that day to change my life so completely. It started off like any other quiet afternoon. I was in my kitchen, enjoying a cup of tea, when the doorbell rang. At first, I thought it was a delivery, or maybe a neighbor. But when I opened the door, there they were. Bill and Myra, standing on my porch like ghosts from a past I had tried so hard to bury. It had been 3 months since I had signed the divorce papers. 3 months of silence, peace, and solitude. I had moved out of the cramped apartment that Bill and I once shared, using the inheritance from my mother to build a beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood. It was a space that represented my freedom. A fresh start, far away from the chaos Bill and Myra had brought into my life. But now, here they were, smiling as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't torn my world apart. "Brenda, darling, what a lovely house you've built." Myra's voice was saccharine sweet, but I could hear the edge beneath her words. She stepped forward, already trying to invite herself in, her eyes scanning the inside of my house like a predator circling its prey. I stood frozen for a moment, unsure of how to respond. This was the woman who had manipulated her son, who had belittled me at every turn, and yet she had the audacity to show up at my doorstep, uninvited and unannounced. Bill, as always, was standing slightly behind her, looking unsure, as if he was just as surprised to be there as I was to see him. "Can we come in?" Myra didn't wait for my answer. She pushed past me, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she started wandering through the house. "It's just gorgeous, European style, right? I've always loved that look." I followed behind them, my heart racing. What did they want? Why were they here? Every step Myra took through my house felt like an invasion, as though she were claiming ownership of something that was never hers to begin with. Bill trailed behind her silently, his eyes darting around the place, but I could tell from his expression that he was just as uneasy as I was. As we moved into the living room, Myra turned, her smile widening. "So, I convinced Bill to come back. I told him you must be struggling, all alone in this big house. You could use his help, right?" I felt the words catch in my throat. Help? After everything they had put me through? The absurdity of it all made my hands tremble. Myra had always treated me like I was some charity case, like I should be grateful for any crumbs of affection or support they offered. But I wasn't that woman anymore. "Actually," I said, forcing myself to stay calm, "I'm single now." Myra's eyes widened in shock, her perfect smile faltering. For the first time in years, I saw a crack in her mask. Bill looked equally stunned, his mouth opening slightly as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "What do you mean, single?" Myra's voice was high-pitched, the calm veneer she always maintained starting to slip. "You're married to Bill. You can't just leave." "I already did," I replied quietly, feeling the weight of those words settle over the room. "I submitted the divorce papers. It's done." The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Myra's face twisted in disbelief, and Bill, as if on cue, started to panic. "Divorce?" Bill stammered, looking back and forth between me and his mother. "But we didn't mean it. We didn't think you'd actually— Brenda, come on, we can fix this." Fix this? The absurdity of it made me laugh, but it was a bitter sound. Bill had always believed he could sweep things under the rug, that with a few kind words and an apologetic smile, everything would go back to the way it was. But things had changed. I had changed. I shook my head, feeling a wave of calm wash over me. "No, Bill. It's over. I've moved on." Myra, who had been standing stiffly beside him, finally snapped. "You can't just throw away your marriage like this. Bill is an elite. He gave you everything." The words elite made my stomach turn. Myra had always been obsessed with status, always reminding me of Bill's job, his position in society, as if that alone made him irreplaceable. But I wasn't the same person who had once believed in their fairy tale version of reality. "You gave me nothing," I said, my voice steady now. "Everything I have, I built myself. This house, this life, it's mine, and I don't need either of you in it." I could see the anger boiling behind Myra's eyes, but she was trying to keep it together, her grip tightening around the handle of her purse. She wasn't used to being told no. But look at this place. You didn't do this all on your own, she said, her voice trembling slightly. You need Bill's support. He can take care of you. I built this house with my inheritance, I replied, feeling the strength of my words as they hung in the air. And I plan to turn it into a guest house business. I don't need anyone's support, especially not Bill's. The silence that followed was deafening. Bill's eyes widened, and Myra's jaw dropped as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. A guest house? Bill stammered, clearly not understanding. Yes, a guest house, I said, feeling the conviction in my voice. I'm turning this place into a business, a place where travelers from all over the world can stay. It's something I've always dreamed of, and now I'm making it happen. But what about us? Bill asked, his voice small, almost childlike. For the first time, I saw the fear in his eyes, the realization that he was no longer a part of my life, that he no longer held any power over me. There is no us anymore, I said firmly. We're strangers now, and I need you to leave. Myra was visibly shaking now, her face red with anger. You can't do this. You think you can just cut us out of your life? You're nothing without Bill. Enough, Myra, I said, my patience finally wearing thin. I'm done with this. I'm done with you both. I took out my phone and held it up, showing her the screen. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. The threat was enough to send them scrambling. Myra grabbed Bill's arm, her eyes blazing with fury as she stormed out of the house, dragging her son with her. Bill hesitated for a moment, his eyes pleading with me, but I stood firm. This was my life now, and they had no place in it. As the door slammed shut behind them, I let out a long breath, the weight of the past 3 years finally lifting off my shoulders. I had been holding on to so much. Resentment, anger, pain. But now it was gone. I was free. 3 months passed, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. The guest house business was slowly taking off, with travelers from all over the world booking stays in the cozy rooms I had prepared. My father had even stepped in to help, managing some of the day-to-day operations while I focused on building connections with guests. It felt good to finally be doing something I loved, something that was entirely mine. But just when I thought the storm had passed, the phone rang one evening. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something told me to pick up. Brenda, a familiar voice crackled through the line. It's Myra. My stomach tightened. Why was she calling me now? After everything that had happened, I had hoped I would never hear from her again. I need your help, she said, her voice uncharacteristically small. Please, just hear me out. I didn't want to, but something in her tone made me pause. This wasn't the usual Myra, demanding, condescending. There was something else there, something desperate. What do you want? I asked, keeping my voice steady. I've lost everything, she admitted, her voice shaking. Bill's company demoted him. He's been transferred to some factory in the middle of nowhere, and I'm broke. I need help. I could barely process what she was saying. Bill, demoted? Myra, broke? It didn't make sense. They had always prided themselves on their status, their wealth, their elite life. And now it was gone? You must be joking, I said, my disbelief evident. I'm not, Myra whispered. I don't have anywhere else to turn. Bill can't support me anymore, and his father, he's left me. I'm in debt. The weight of her words hung in the air between us, and for the first time I felt a flicker of something I hadn't expected,